Hey everybody, it's Jackie with Jackie's Recent Things. We're going to make the bows to go on our garland. Now you need 3 of them or 1 of them. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. But typically when I want to make sure that I make consistent bows and they're all identical, I pull out my Pro Bow. This is the newest Pro Bow large model, and I'm going to use row D. I'm only using 5 ribbons, so that's the only reason I've got 5 pegs out here, and then my center peg. For a really good tutorial on how to use the Pro Bow, it is available on the app under Pro Bow tutorials. So I've already made 2 of the bows. There's no point in you watching me make all 3 of them. That way we can move on. So I'm just making what's called a 5 ribbon terry bow. So I'm pulling 2 pieces of wire. And then I always dovetail my ribbon to start. Now when I do my first loop on my peg, I start down here at row B, and I'll show you why I measure it with row B. I just like my tails to be about the same size as the loop, so that puts my tail about the same size as my loop to start out with, and then I'll gradually go up. So I'm just wrapping the wire, I'm not twisting it, I'm just wrapping it around the ribbon, and then I've got my ribbon halfway up my peg, and wrapping my wire clockwise, and then down on the bottom I'm going to wrap it counterclockwise. And then I'm going to tuck that little bit underneath there because we're done with this wire. So I think here's where people kind of get confused. You're making your bow from the top down, so you need to plan your ribbon accordingly on how you want it from the top down. So you're going to move this one tail out of the way, make a loop over this one, and what I do is I hold it because it slides. When you first start making the bow, it slides. So I hold the wire in the center, and then you pull it over, and then you want to pinch your ribbon together, and you want to give it a 180 twist. So at this point, the bad side of the ribbon is facing you. And then you want to pop your ribbon over that other peg for your loop. And once again, you're going to do a 180 twist. The bad side of the ribbon is facing you. So here's where your second wire comes in. You're going to put it all the way under all your ribbon. Come around to this side of the peg with your wire, and then tie it. And then to keep it consistent, I measure out to row B and cut my tail. You can use 2.5 inch ribbon. I'm using 1.5 to start mine. You can alternate your ribbons however you choose. It's a personal preference. Like I said, there is a really good tutorial here on the app under the Pro Bow tutorials that has a better camera angle, so you can see better exactly what I'm doing with my hands down here and everything like that. there's a break in the ribbon, y'all. So every Christmas, what I do is I have like a huge collection of Christmas decor, and I try to repurpose it throughout my house, sometimes combine it to change things up. So I have elves and stuff like that. So this year I'm actually adding to my decor by doing this. And this is going to go at the end of my hallway upstairs. And that's where I'm going to have my elf theme at this year. My tree downstairs this year is going to be a candy theme. It'll be the first year that I've done cupcakes and such on my tree. And what I typically like to do is buy all my items on sale the year before and plan it far in advance. Okay, so this is where the other wire comes in to finish up. I cut off the other wire because we don't need it anymore. This is our finishing wire to tighten our bow up and cinch it up so it'll lay nicely. Like I said, I made the other two bows because there was no point in you watching me make all three of them for this project, because you'll be able to go back and hit replay. So let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole garland again. I zoomed in so you can see the bow. But let's get zoomed out here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put the first bow in the middle. The middle is going to be super easy to find. It's right here. So that's where I'm aiming for. And you just need to decide, well, do you want your bow to sit up higher for tails, in the middle? You know, you just have to decide where you want it to sit. I think I'm going to want to add faux tails, so I'm going to want mine to sit up a little bit higher. It's actually been a while since I used wire to make a bow, so it was a little bit difficult, kind of out of practice there. And I missed the other side, so my bow will move. We don't want that. Now, I don't want to have a sharp piece, so what I do with these is I'm just going to tuck this out of the way. And I didn't have to flip it over. I just wanted to show you what I was doing, because I'm going to do the same thing down here. And once again, I'm going toward the top. I'm going to take my leftover wire and tuck it in. If you need to, because of hand strength, when you make your bow, you can finish it off, use your last wire. You can use a pipe cleaner. And once again, I'm just tucking those wires in. The other advantage to tucking the wires into is it lets you just come back and maybe do a simple fresh up on your arrangement and keep it longer, just by changing the bow out. And it's a good thing to suggest to a customer too, because you can sell the bows. then they can take them off and just change them out. So if you have a customer that you know likes something new every year, but doesn't want to spend the money, because the bow is going to give it the most dramatic effect as the change, as opposed to even the little ribbons and stuff like that that we add in. So when I'm fluffing my bow up, I'm trying to make sure that there's a good balance of where my loops and my tails. So see, I've got 2 loops right here, so I made sure I pulled that time a tail in between. And sometimes you have to just give a really good pull on your ribbon to get it exactly where you want to, and that's okay. You're not going to break anything. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add my elves. And the reason I'm doing it like this, normally I would add ribbons and stuff like that, but for this, I want to try to not use as much product as possible. So because my bows take up so much space, and my elves, they're going to take up quite a bit of space. So I want to go ahead and add them. Now the elves I got from General Wholesale. And there's a little pull right here, but that doesn't exactly go with where I'm wanting my elves to go. Oh, and I just pulled my bow loose. I pulled on it too hard, y'all. tell it was too far to the outside and I just wanted to move it. And the reason I could tell was because of the distance between this bow and that bow where my elf was sitting. See how close those are? So that's what I was trying to readjust for. Much better. Tie that a couple more times this time. Okay, so here's the issue. So when I go to put my elves in, the rails basically are hitting a little bit too low. So I'm going to grab the hat because I have red pipe cleaners. So I'm going to use the hat as my attachment point for my elves. And I've got a metal hole punch that's going to make quick work of that. You can get the metal hole punch at Michael's or Hobby Lobby in the jewelry section. So I'm going to put this pretty low so it'll be fairly discreet. The good thing about metal is you don't have to put your hole over that far, which makes it even easier to be discreet, because if you tie it tightly, it's not going to rip. It's metal. So I kind of want to give them a little tilt to give them a little personality. So I wrapped this one around the bottom of the rail, bottom section. So this one I'm gonna wrap around the top. So it'll have that tilt and it won't move. And the mesh and the evergreen is going to keep it afloat, so it's kind of it's a little bit difficult for me to pull it down flat to the frame. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mirror it this way. We go to the bottom rail first. And then this is going to go to the top. And that's what's going to keep my elves tilted from moving. So now's where the fun starts, and we really get to start loading this up with our goodies. So because we've already taken up a lot of space with our items between our bows and stuff, I'm really wanting to add tails to this. And sometimes that's not the easiest decision to make. So I want to show you how easy it is to add tails after the fact, and it's okay. I kind of personally like the faux tails just a little bit better because they seem to fan out better to me than when making them into the bow. So I'm going to stack all my ribbons up here that I used in my bow. And I'm going to stack them up in the same order that I used them in, because I'm just going to pull them all at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take my hand and use it to measure. So I'm just going to go, okay, so that's 6 inches. So I wanted a little bit, my tail's a little bit longer, so that's 6 inches. So I'm going to use an 8-inch, so I got to cut my tail 16 inches to get the desired drop down, because I don't want it too low, but I want it to come down. So I'm going to cut these 16 inches. And you don't have to stack these up like I'm doing. I'm just doing it because they'll make it go quicker once I get them all stacked up. So that's my 16 inches. I'm still not quite happy, so I'm going to give it another 4 inches just to make sure I have the length that I want. Because I can always cut a little off, but it's kind of hard to go back and add more. So basically I've decided to cut them 20 inches. So I'm going to grab 3 pipe cleaners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up all my ribbons and I'm just going to fold them in half. And I'm going to gather this up like I would regular ribbon when I'm doing tails. And take my pipe cleaner, wrap it around. Set that to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and do this so my ribbons don't fall apart. Like I said, I kind of prefer to do this because I have found the tails just like fan out better and they look better to me. I'm going to go ahead and make my mess by dovetailing my tails. Oh, that's a kick in the teeth, y'all. There's a bad place in my ribbon. And it's so far up I can't even fix it. inches off today, y'all. It was 24 inches that I cut my tails, not 20 inches. So all that we do to add these tails is we're going to come up underneath our bow in the center and just tie them in. I don't know if you can tell what I mean by watching about how much better the tails fan out. And just to let you know, my tails are hitting the center rail as I'm putting them in. If you decorate your home for the holidays, now is a good time to start the prep work for it. I wouldn't necessarily hang it up, but you can start the prep work and start setting things aside, especially during the down season, if you do this for a business. That way you'll have all your goodies ready to throw up and decorate when the time comes. And you're not stressed about doing that plus. I also think if you do it for a business, gives you a break from the monotony of whatever you're doing to actually focus on something going on and do something for yourself. So for years now, I've kind of put peppermint pieces, and I have these, which I've made here in the group and shown how to make. I've used those to decorate with in my living room for a couple years now, but they're going to go to the end of the hall. Basically, it's just about time to cycle them out of my house because I've been using them for so long now. So they're going to move to the end of the hall just for another decoration this year, and to start phasing them out. But this is the first year that I have decorated my hall. So I'm just slowly getting to where every room in the house, so, you know, it's just like, it'll gradually all go around my house. All right. So I've accidentally created a ribbon mess here. Let me get this out of the way real quick. So the ornament balls that I have chosen are red and white. So my dominant ribbon that I'm going to want is going to be a lime green. And then just so stuff stands out from my bow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in a different ribbon. So I'm going to be using this and a smaller Harlequin ribbon. One second. So to start filling this out, I'm going to make bows by hand. That way it just kind of goes quicker. And then that way, using the bow, it's going to take up more space, so that it fills out quicker. I think the more that you take your decorations and move them around your house and repurpose them, the fresher it even stays for you longer than putting them in the same place every single year. Just to avoid, you know, creating kind of like a humdrum for yourself. basically what I'm doing is I'm going where and grabbing the ties or the evergreen where I tied the mesh in, and I'm using those to place the ribbon. And I'm going to pull this one in to break up some of to pull more of the red, green, and lime in together. I would say I'm doing about a 6-inch loop. So as I come around the top, I just want to make sure that my ribbons are not like touching each other, so I'm going to rotate them differently. That way they're not up and down directly top from each other. Now, if you wanted to just go in and do ribbon tails from the start, you can. But when something is so big, you just kind of got to stop and say, how can I make a big statement with less product? I've had this Harlequin for a long time. I got a big, huge, actually got 2 rolls of it when I found it. I haven't seen it available anywhere else. Because I know some of y'all will be messaging me later on, Jackie, where'd you get that? I've had it for a long time. And definitely when it comes to decorating for Christmas, I'm all about getting 50-yard rolls. I want to make sure that I don't run out of ribbon when I'm decorating, because y'all know I use a lot of ribbon. Ribbon's a great way to put a lot of big statements out there really fast. A lot of color, especially on a tree. It's really good for filling up a little space. And ribbon by far is a trend that isn't going to change anytime soon. So it's a safe choice year after year after year. And if you're able to plan and get it on sale, that's just like a total bonus, folks. Okay, so let's get in our final little pieces that's going to add a little decoration. Of course, it's fine the way it is. You don't have to add anything else if you don't want to, by far. But I want to add some ornaments to give it a little holiday cheer. And I like to add those in very asymmetrical. I like to add them in to where they kind of mirror each other. And it's balanced. That's just, you know, my preference. Me personally, you can add them in, you know, however you want. I'm a balanced person. I can't help that. The good thing is, because the evergreen base, we don't really have to go to that much trouble to secure these in. We're just going to do some hot glue wonder with them. And we're just going to make sure that they hit the evergreen. So I am being very liberal with the hot glue to make sure it really grabs onto the evergreen. And it's not going to go anywhere. See how easy this is to maneuver, to be able to sit down and do it. I'm not having to run up and down the garland. I just pick it up and turn it, and I haven't messed anything up. And then my last little thing to add a little holiday, more little cheer, and to keep it whimsy, I love floral picks for this. Some wispy ones. These you can get at Craft Outlet. So I'm going to put 5 along the top. I don't like my picks all facing the same direction, so I kind of alternate them back and forth. And I wouldn't necessarily worry about how they're placed. Know where you're going to place them, and then you can come back and adjust them later. Just let them get sit in there, and then you can come back and make them bigger so they can be seen more, or smaller, or shorter, or you know, whatever you need to do so that they stand out. after the glue cools. I'm going to add 5 more at the bottom. Because I'm going to make sure that they're facing the opposite way the curl is of the ones at the top. Whoops. Got my hand in the hot glue, y'all. Good thing it was on low. Yep, I got my hand in there good, y'all. Let's try to not do that. So I'm making sure every time I'm hitting evergreen with my hot glue. That's really, really important so my stuff doesn't come out unexpectedly. So because this is the bottom, I might drop these down a little bit lower to give it a little bit of more length. Plus to go kind of below the tails a little bit. Fluff things out, put it the way it goes on the way. So overall, once you start this project, it'll probably take you a couple hours. But the good thing is it's actually a project that you can break apart into sections and time. You know, like make the bows one day, set them to the side, and then, you know, spend one day pulling it all together. Those are kind of my favorite projects, are ones that, you know, it doesn't have to sit down and do it today and you've got a big mess. It's not the case with doing these. You can break them apart and feel zero guilt because there's not going to be anything in your way, and not feel time crunch that you have to finish it today because you've got this big mess of stuff around your house. So I hope y'all enjoy this as a different perspective and something else that you could do with rail forms. Another way that you can use the wooden rails to, you know, make a garland, because this is going to be super easy to hang up. Just a couple of 3M hooks and they don't damage, you know, anything, and it's hung up. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Bye, y'all.